Hey, VC, it's Dr. Robert. I'm here in Lancaster, California, and I'll explain a little later in the video why I'm here in Lancaster, California. But I'm standing outside of one of the local record stores, Full Score Music. You can see their front door there. I was in here earlier this week. I'm going to come back in today and look through a few more other stacks and sort of see what develops. Hey, vinyl community, this is Dr. Robert, and I'm here in Lancaster, California at in the record store, and I'm blanking on the name of the store now.
Wayne's Full Score Music.
Wayne's Full Score Music. Yeah, we were in here earlier this week, my brother and I, and scored some great albums. But the highlight of the trip so far is today meeting John French of the Captain Beefheart's Magic Band and a number of other musical collaborations, and been a fan of John's music for years. Since I was in college, and I can't believe I'm running into him at Wayne's store. So here he is. So we've already had a little bit of a conversation, but I wanted to get some of this recorded. So John, what do you want to make sure anybody that's familiar with you knows about your music?
Oh, well, it was a different approach than most people have. I mean, you know, I've had people say that, you know, the greatest drummer in the world and all this, you know, a few people, you know.
I'm sure more than a few.
But I would say that, you know, I wasn't that great a drummer. I didn't really have that much time to practice because most of the time I was working on musical direction when I was in the band or transcribing the music. But I like to be, if somebody's going to remember me, I hope they remember me for being original, because I didn't play the standard 2 and 4 beat, you know. I was playing patterns that were sometimes very difficult for me to learn.
I can imagine.
Brain teasers, and I tried to stay away from doing fills,
Right.
because the music was already complicated enough, and I thought, you know, some of the music I did fills on when it was just straight ahead, but a lot of it was just going from pattern to pattern, and it was hard enough to learn the patterns anyway.
Right.
So I just sort of, if you know, if I could define what I did that I think was special or different, it would be that it was original patterns, and not so much in the area of fills or being flamboyant or twirling sticks or anything. I was too busy trying to keep. I wanted to not throw the other guys off, especially when we were playing, you know, in odd time signatures in different keys from each other sometimes.
Right.
And that was hard enough,
Right.
because you really couldn't listen to anybody else. You had to play your own part and try to really focus on the pulse rather than anything else.
Right.
You couldn't depend on, oh, we're changing now, because, you know, you couldn't do that. And even though we all changed together on most of the stuff,
Right.
it was difficult enough, and I thought, I'm not going to try to do any fills or anything fancy. I'm just going to try to keep the beat together and do something that maybe kind of makes sense with everybody's different rhythm patterns.
Right. Right.
You know, so I would say more or less I was kind of stitching it together, trying to stitch it together so it made sense.
Right. And you transcribed a lot of the music, actually, is what I understand, and put it in writing or put it formally down. Is that correct?
Right.
Yeah.
And I wasn't very good at doing that at first. I mean, I didn't even know there was a bass clef. You know, that's how little I knew about writing music. But, you know, and I had to start out with, okay, every good boy does fine. That kind of, all cows eat grass. Okay. And so I wrote both hands in treble clef. I had two treble clefs.
Oh man.
So, I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
But obviously it worked well enough to where the guys, my odd way of thinking about music, it was able to work with the other guys. And
Right.
they would come to me, I would sit at the piano.
Right.
First of all with Don when he'd write the stuff, and then afterwards the guys would come one at a time, and they all had different ways of learning. Like Bill Harkrode, he had the most unusual way because he would say, okay, tap out the pattern for me. So I'd go, and then he'd say, okay, now what's the first chord pattern? So he'd tap out the pattern, and then he'd have me play it vertically, one thing at a time, like a sequence, very slowly, and then he'd just kind of work with it for a minute, and then he'd play it.
Right.
And that was his way of doing it. Mark was more a feel person, so he didn't understand anything about writing music.
And Mark who are we talking
Mark Boston, he was the bass player. Rocket Morgan.
Rocket Morgan, yeah, Rocket.
So he had to really go by feel, so he had to play it a lot for him. I learned those bass parts really well because, I'd play them a lot. And I didn't know much about playing piano either. I'd had a few lessons, and that was it. But I learned Don's hand positions, and sort of his approach to piano. He played a lot of fourths and fifths with his left hand and octaves, And Jeff was sort of in between Bill and Mark because he had actually given guitar lessons when he was 16.
And this is Jeff Simmons? Is that I got the name right?
Lieutenant Jimmy Simmons, I'm sorry.
Yeah. No worries.
I know them by their real names. So.
Sure, of course. Well, so we were talking earlier, can you give any sense of what that was like recording Trout Mask Replica, which, what those, and I know you guys lived together communally in one house, right? I know the legends, but you actually lived it. What was that like for you?
Well, it was a small split level house. We had one bedroom and a bath downstairs, which was most of the time we lived there, that place was filled with storage stuff, but we did kind of clean it out later to where we each had a bed for a while, which was nice. But most of the time we all slept upstairs on the living room floor.
Jeez Louise.
Yeah.
How many months are we talking about?
9.
9 months.
Yeah. That was from the very beginning when we started working on the very first song, which I think was Steal Softly Through Snow. And then Bill joined shortly after because Alex had left. So we got Bill in the band, and Jeff was already in the band, Jeff Cotton and Tin Eye.
Right.
And Mark came last. He came probably sometime in early fall, maybe this time of year,
Okay.
something like that.
Yeah.
But we all just kind of started working on this intense album, and Don was really into having control over everybody, and there was a lot of interrogation, and I would call them brainwashing sessions,
right?
Because and he would have his girlfriend read to us sometimes. My favorite part was when she was reading Diary of a Genius by Salvador Dali. Now that was kind of fun. But later on, he had her reading a book called The Naked Ape by Desmond Morris. And I hate that book to this day. Absolutely hate that book.
Do you think you would hate it outside the context in which you first encountered it, or?
No, I think I would hate it even
just on the basis
context.
of the book, you would hate it.
It was just, it was so much reading into people's body language and assuming certain things about people, and it just got crazy in the house.
Yeah, I bet.
When one of the things that he said in the book was that you know, dictators always stroke their mustache like this. Well, Mark used to do that.
Yeah, right.
You know, Mark Boston would do that, and you know, as soon as Laurie read that line, he stops and goes, "Ha ha!" and points to Mark. You know, like, you know, we found our Hitler.
Yeah, right. Oh,
You know,
man.
and I wanted to say, you know, no, you're the Hitler, Don.
That is a great story. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah,
Oh,
stuff
golly.
like that was going on all the time,
We're-
and you know, so there was always this. It was Gary Marker, who was a bass player for the Rising Suns, and he was a friend of Don's. And he came over before we got Mark in the band. Gary Marker would come over, and he played on the first two songs that were recorded for Trout Replica. That was Moonlight in Vermont and Veterans Day Poppy.
Right.
And those had been written before we started with the piano compositions.
Right.
Anyway, he told me later in an interview that he said, Don took him out and said, "Man, I'm going to teach those kids the way I want them to do this," you know. And Gary Marker's take was that Don, his whole plan was to keep people as off kilter as he could. You know, just a little off balance all the time.
Yeah.
And he did that.
Yeah.
I mean, he would come in with the craziest ideas. And let's do this, and you're right in the middle of something else. And so that happened a lot. And
Yeah.
it was you know, when you look back on it, it's like that old saying. Who said it? Sinclair Lewis. Humor is chaos recollected in tranquility.
I'm going to have to look that one up. I don't know that
I
one.
think it's Sinclair Lewis because I
Okay.
looked it up one time.
All right.
I could be wrong.
All right.
Anyway, that seemed to be, you know, it sounds funny now,
Right.
but it was horrific.
It was not funny in the moment.
No, it was
Yeah.
horrific to go through because
Right.
you got all this pressure.
Oh, my
We're
God.
trying to do a double album. All the songs have a dozen parts per person.
Right.
Okay, so you got a dozen riffs they got on for every song. And as far as I can tell, there were 18 songs that were written in the piano style. So 18 times 12,
Right.
whatever that is.
Right.
And then, you know, and then trying to put that together with other guys that are playing stuff that's completely not related to what you're playing
Yeah,
most
right.
of the time.
Right.
Now, some of the songs, you know, like something like Pachuco Cadaver, you know, it had this thing that was more together.
Right.
But a lot of the stuff was just chaotic.
The blimp.
That was Frank Zappa.
That's not even music.
That's
just-
the Mothers.
Yeah. Yeah. Is it? Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was practicing that one day because I used to go out. We had a laundry shed on the property, and the only way I could really get any peace where I could practice was to go out in the laundry shed,
Wow.
because if the drums were in the house, they would disturb Don. Now you would think that he'd know, since I'm practicing his music, that it's a good thing for me to practice.
Yeah. Right.
But I would have to lug my drums out
Right.
to this laundry shed. It was a
Incredible.
tiny little
Incredible.
place, you know.
Wow.
And I'd play in there. Well, one day I was taking a break from playing the songs, and I thought, I wonder if I can play that. And I went da 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 da. It's like da 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 da
Yeah.
da 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 da. And Don comes on and goes, "What are you doing Frank Zappa's music for, man?"
So you got his voice pretty well down, I think. I got to say.
Well, you know, I recreated the Magic Band,
Did you?
you know, reassembled, and
Yeah.
we did
Yeah.
tours from 2003
Oh,
to
man.
2017.
I'm sorry I missed that. Yeah.
I don't know.
So
Well, it was
did you
mostly
sing?
Europe.
Did you sing? Oh, mostly.
Yeah, I sang.
And you sang the part. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, so I had to learn that style, which before I got in the band, I had a band and we were doing blues. I was doing some Howlin' Wolf stuff because it was popular.
Right.
Because Beefheart was the big band of the era. Hey man, you gotta go hear Beefheart. Nobody called him Captain Beefheart and the Magic Band. That was too lame.
Right, right, too long.
Yeah, man, Beefheart's playing tonight.
So can you talk a little bit? I don't mean to interrupt because I'm really enjoying your storytelling. So I've always thought that it's some kind of a mix between, and people talk about the influence of Delta blues and then free jazz, and those two. I mean, are those influences for you personally, or what would you cite as your influences musically?
Well, after I got in the band, Don was playing all this stuff for me.
Right.
So yeah, I was influenced by that for sure.
Right.
And he had been, and the guy that I mentioned earlier, Gary Marker, was a friend of his that he met around the time of the Rising Suns.
Oh, I know the Rising Suns. Yeah, that's a great record.
Yeah. So Taj Mahal. I'm trying to think of the drummer's name. Jesse Ed Davis.
I don't think he was on drums. It was Ry Cooder and Taj, and then
Gary Marker was the bass player.
I gotta look it up. I know it's a foursome, right? I think it was a foursome.
Yeah. I can't remember. I'm kind of embarrassed by that.
Yeah.
I never met the drummer, so that kind of helped. But
now, Ry wasn't at any of the Trout Mask sessions. Is that right? I know he's on Safe as Milk.
No, he was on Safe as Milk only.
And then he was gone. Yeah.
And we did one gig with Ry, and he left the band because Don walked off the stage.
Yeah, I read about that.
After a song and a half.
Right.
And Ry just said, I can't, I got stuff to do. I can't put up with this. Right. I couldn't blame him.
Yeah, I get it.
I wish I should have left with him.
Yes.
Oh.
Well, I think...
Take me with you when you go.
It's so... Well, look, I think, it's an incredible legacy. It's an incredible accomplishment. And, and it was, obviously it wouldn't have happened without you and without the, the other band members sticking it out. So...
Right, yeah. Bill Harkerud was a big, a big part of the sound too, because he took over when I left.
Right.
After being sort of under my internship, I guess, he watched me and sort of took over the musical development, but he didn't write it down.
Right.
It was more in his head. So when I went back to do the Magic Band stuff, and I wanted to do some stuff from decals, which is probably the most difficult stuff that he did.
Oh, lick my decals off, baby.
Yeah.
That's what you're referring to.
Yeah.
You use shorthand. I'm just trying to...
Pardon?
You use shorthand in your descriptions of this stuff because, it's part of who you are.
Yeah,
so.
I'm sorry.
No, it's cool. It's really cool.
It's like Beefheart, man. Decals, Beefheart, TMR.
Well, I can't tell you what a delight and really an honor it is to have had a chance to meet you and speak to you. I think, I think I told you my brother and I are here. In fact, I'm just going to pan. There's my brother, David, and we're here.
Hey, I thought this was all about me, man.
Well, it's it truly is. It truly is. But we're here taking care of our 97-year-old uncle and probably moving him back to Iowa.
And never return to Lancaster again.
Well, but I'm kind of rethinking that. I think we found enough people here, friends, and you're certainly. We've just met today, but I'm stumbling a little bit. But what I want to say is, it feels like there's some good reasons to come back to Lancaster.
Sure.
Yeah, it's not a bad place.
Well, with that, I'm going to fade out on this segment.
Okay,
and,
Doc.
Dude, it's just,
Doc Roberts.
Anything else you want to leave with the audience last?
I can't think of a thing except that, that old saying, an artist goes through three phases, the young, what's the word I'm trying to think of?
Young, beautiful person.
The young dreamer.
Yeah. Oh, dreamer. Okay.
Then the guy who then the guy who's sort of disillusioned by the whole thing, you go through that period,
Yeah.
and then you wind up the old weirdo with a studio, the home studio. That's where I'm at now.
Hey, congratulations on all of it, really. And, you know, your work speaks. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
You bet. Well, hey, VC, it's Dr. Robert wrapping up my visit to Lancaster, California, and just recently finished the visit to Full Score Music here in Lancaster, run by and owned by Wayne Tarasoff. And Wayne is just a great guy, and watched him in his role as Pop to his grandchildren this week, and that was he really enjoys them, and bought them both extra donuts, which certainly was a popular move, and well done, and really it was just fun to watch. And of course, he also put me in touch with John French, and I was able to complete that interview yesterday. We're going to be, I think you've just finished watching that, hopefully. So I wanted to show just a couple of records that I got out of Wayne's store that have some significant meaning. And one of them is this one, Song for My Father by Horace Silver. And this is an album I've been looking for a while. This is a Blue Note copy, or sorry, it's a Blue Note record, and it's a second label with the Liberty label, and I don't know, so-called, if that projects or not, but it's the second label. The first one was the New York Blue Note label. This is a Liberty Blue Note label, and it is actually unusual in that it wasn't listed currently in Discogs. It does not have the Rudy Van Gelder stamp or the ear or P in the dead wax. It has none of that, and it has an MR, so I don't know if it's a Monarch stamp. At any rate, I have uploaded it to YouTube now, so or not to YouTube, to Discogs. So it is now in Discogs, and but I'm just delighted to have it. And again, the purpose of this trip has been for my brother and I to get our uncle, 97-year-old uncle, widower without children of his own, get him packed up and moved out to Iowa, and we're still working on that. But he is my father's brother. My father passed away 12 years ago, and one of the fun parts about this trip has been how much he reminds me of my dad. So that's been a lot of fun, and that record, I guess, is somewhat poignant given all of that background. So a couple more records I wanted to call out. Let's get into some Captain Beefheart. This, of course, Lancaster is Captain Beefheart's hometown, original hometown where he grew up, and actually John French, I think, grew up here as well, although they did not really overlap much. There's a fair age difference. But I found these two records here. These were both still sealed, and these are compilations, and John French was deeply involved with these, and in fact the back cover has a notice to him that says "Impossible Without John French," and he wrote the liner notes for really a fairly lengthy historical description of the time he spent with Captain Beefheart. And this is a 3-volume record set. I only found 2 volumes here. I've gone ahead and ordered the 3rd volume off of Discogs, but these are all it's again a compilation of previously unreleased tracks mainly. I think there may be a few that have been released before, but from different eras of the Captain's career, and including a 2-volume set here that's dedicated to pretty much Trout Mask Replica outtakes. So looking forward to hearing those. I haven't been able to play either of those, but those were quite a find, and again, regionally specific, and I think would be hard to find in a lot of other locations. And those came out 1999, so they've been out for a while, limited pressing, and just can't wait to give those a listen. So with that, I think I'm gonna hit the road. It's been real, and until the next time, the doctor is out.